Welcome back to Bodies, Barbells and Bagels with my co-host here, Mr. Sean McLeany. Hello, Jazzy.
What up?
How you going, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. We missed you in the last one. We had
I wasn't invited.
I know. You didn't want to talk about mindset. And we know our guest today isn't here for that. So he is definitely here for the science-based portion of the podcast. Obviously, we want to make this podcast, I guess we could term it, I hate the term holistic and wellness, but I guess we do want to hit it from all aspects of science, as well as a little bit of anecdotal, as well as some mindset, bit of this and that. So that being said, I'm going to give our guest a little intro today. He's got a big one, so even though he's very young. So I'm going to keep it brief, but basically he has a Bachelor of Science in Exercise and Health, honours degree in Exercise Physiology. He's been offered a scholarship and placement at University of Western Australia. So you could say he's a pretty big deal. He's now completing his PhD, and research focuses on intermittent, I can never say that word properly, intermittent dieting and refeeds for athletes, which would be really interesting, and we'd love to have him on the podcast talking about that in the future, but that is not what we are talking about today. He is an online coach and a competitor. He did recently compete at the Arnold Classic in men's physique. So, big warm welcome, Mr. Jackson Peos, or as he has been termed, Dr. Peos.
Not yet. Dr. Carl, our podcast.
Welcome. How you going?
Very good. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
No worries. I think you got it all right besides the intermission.
Was it all right?
You made me sound smarter than I am.
How old are you actually? I was going to ask that.
I just turned 24.
Just turned 24. God, you've got these two old guys over here. And it was funny because I've known Jackson for I reckon about 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Probably.
I remember he was this little fella training back at Anytime Inaloo, and I think you come from what, rugby background?
Football, yeah.
Football background, and then
As
what are you
in
doing?
AFL.
That's what it means in our country.
Oh, yeah. Football to me is soccer.
That's not football.
I just refuse to call it soccer. I'm not American.
So I guess from there, like going on through uni and then what made you, I guess, the big thing that I guess we like about you and about what you're about is that not only, do you put out great evidence and great science, and you post funny memes too to go along with it. So I think that makes it makes it more relatable. Yeah. So we'll put Jackson's social media in the notes for the show. But I think that also the fact that you lift, like there's a lot of people out there that preach science and post evidence, but then sometimes they don't back it up by how they go about things. Yeah. And also what you do with your clients. So yeah, thank you for coming on. And yeah, anything you want to, I guess, touch on about your honours maybe to start off with, because we won't go into that too deep in today, but can you explain to us, like, I guess, what you're specifically doing with that right now?
With the PhD?
Yeah.
So when I started my PhD, I wanted to tackle some of the issues that were being talked a lot about in the bodybuilding scenes, but sort of hadn't really been verified in the literature yet. And sort of the two main things that I was most interested in was refeeds and reverse dieting. Mm-hmm. Now these are sort of two big strategies that everyone talks about a lot and they use very frequently, but we actually don't have the data to actually support these practices yet. So I wanted to sort of tackle one of those topics, and so I can sort of come out at the end of my PhD and say, okay, refeeds work, or reverse dieting is better than sort of just going straight to maintenance or straight to the surplus after a competition or something like that.
The old school method.
So I sort of gravitated towards refeeds, and intermittent dieting is sort of what it's, if you wanted to do a literature search on PubMed or something like that, you wouldn't search refeeds, you'd search intermittent dieting. And there's so many different protocols in terms of how you manipulate caloric intake over weeks or months or days. But it hasn't ever been tested in athletes, never.
Yeah.
Not one randomised controlled trial.
It's mainly anecdotal at the moment.
Completely anecdotal.
Mm.
And it's funny because people talk about refeeds and they think they're like this evidence-based, sciencey strategy that's used by sort of the top guys in the field. But we actually don't know if they work yet.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think that's very funny because I think a lot of people they just assume that refeeds work and they say, oh, okay, like we're going to get this massive surge of leptin, or we're going to elevate our metabolism and
from one
things
feed.
like that. Exactly, and then we're going to be able to lose fat for longer, or we're going to be able to prolong weight loss stalls, or things like that. And there is like a good rationale, like a logical rationale that you can describe to someone and be like, well, that makes sense. So that they probably do work, but we don't know if they work in practice yet. So that's why I wanted to tackle that issue. And I was very lucky that I was in contact with researchers over in Sydney at the time who work in the Institute of Nutrition and Obesity. And they sort of, we were in contact, and they had just published sort of a massive paper. They get heaps of funding over there, and they had like 100 overweight men come into a diet study, and they dieted one group for 16 weeks straight, like so that would be a standard continuous diet. And then in another group, after every 2 weeks of dieting, they'd give them a 2-week refeed, where they would eat at maintenance essentially and maintain their weight for 2 weeks. So after every 2 weeks, they're having a 2-week diet break, so the intervention was longer for that refeed group, but they equated the total weeks of dieting that they actually had to do. And what they saw was that the group that was implementing these 2-week refeeds, they were able to maintain their metabolic rate better than the group that continuously dieted, and they were also able to lose more fat than the continuous diet group. Now that's massive. Like that was the first time.
Was their net calories finishing in a higher position as well, as an average?
Well, it was because they had metabolic chambers and things like that, so they very tightly monitored where the metabolisms were at and how they were changing. But that was sort of the first well-controlled study to come out and say,
this is the thing.
Refeeds could actually work, but
you don't have to feel like shit for 16 weeks straight.
But maybe you should diet longer.
But still, like as sort of an evidence-based practitioner, you sort of say, oh, okay, well, this is an overweight population. You know, they're sedentary. They have completely different metabolic profiles to an athlete who has very high physical activity, energy expenditure, and sort of very low cases of preliminary states of diseases and things like that. So you can't say that just because they work in overweight people like that it's going to work in athletes, because we know that if you look at weight loss trials in overweight people, muscle mass loss is not really a concern at all. But for athletes it's a massive concern because you don't have that protective effect of adipose that an overweight person does. I don't think we can take that study and go, okay, well, based on this, that's going to work for athletes. So I was in contact with that group. Amanda Salas was the professor there, and I sort of spoke to her about my interests and say she didn't really know that athletes were even doing refeeds at all, or that she was totally focused on overweight populations. But I said, listen, like there's a lot of athletes out there that like even not just physique athletes like bodybuilders and figure competitors and things like that, but even like combat athletes, boxers and wrestlers who have to make weight, they're trialling refeeds and they're doing different spins on sort of intermittent dieting, and it's happening a lot. We don't have any data. A lot of people would be pretty keen to figure out, can this stuff work for athletes? And from there we sort of like sparked up an interest together, developed a bit of a relationship, and then we planned to run a trial together, and I was lucky enough to take the lead position on this project, and she'll be my co-supervisor, and we're looking to start this trial this year. So
awesome.
You're the main honcho.
Sorry?
You're the main dude.
Yeah. Also,
it's pretty cool.
It means I've got to run like 200 decks again.
Is that what you do?
We get a free deck, so you need any subjects. But and it's awesome, and I think it's important for people listening, if you don't actually know a lot about, I guess, science and research, because a lot of our listeners don't know anything about what research is, what it's all about. It's just understanding the principle of actually, there's a lot of stuff out there in the health and fitness world that, like Jackson said before, so if you can explain something well enough, people will often believe you. It doesn't mean it's fact.
100%.
Some people are really good at spinning bullshit. You can swear on our podcast. So this is a big problem. This is what we're trying to move away from. Put my hand up, I probably said shit in the past that I haven't got and researched, and we all make mistakes, but at the same time it's a part of the learning process and part of the journey. But that being said, we'll definitely get you on again on the podcast. Let's do a whole one about refeeds. But for today, we are talking supplements because it has been a highly requested one. We did our first supplement podcast, but we did it more about the basics. Like we talked magnesium, we talked all of this and that. But then we've been asked for all of your generic supplements. So people are asking us a lot about protein, pre-workouts, aminos. Do we need them? Don't we need them? What do I need to spend my money on to get results? So that's what we've got Jackson on for today, because even though he's obviously got a good research background, I would say Sean and Jackson are probably more so than me, the two guys that I would probably listen to when it comes to supplements. So to start off with though, we're going to do our for him tip and for her tip for the week. So, Shawnee, have you got a for him tip this week, or are you going to give it to Jackson?
I think Jackson said he's got one today. So
while stuffing his mouth with brownies.
I pass my reins to you.
Yeah, so keeping with the supplement theme, last week they had a systematic review published that looked at the effects of omega-3 fatty acid supplementation. And the conclusions that the authors came out with was that for men specifically, taking 2 to 5 grams of omega-3, so DHA, EPA, per day can increase anabolic signaling efficiency, potentially by activating satellite cells. And for those who don't know, satellite cells play an important role in sort of initiating and prolonging muscle protein synthesis. So I think that was cool.
Fish oil equals gains.
Taking fish oil. 20 grams, 2 to 5.
Yeah.
For males, so I'm guessing for females, slightly smaller dose or body weight dependent. Have they done research on females yet, or is it just males?
So it was a review, so they were pulling
Data,
the research that they had, and sometimes with research, because women have fluctuations in their cycles and things like that, sometimes just as an easier outlet, researchers tend to just use men, because it's one of those variables you don't have to account for. So a lot of the data that's around was looking at men. So I think that's why they didn't want to say, okay, well, just because it works for men, it works for females as well.
Just half it.
I think it's pretty would be like.
With
most things in physiology, you tend to not see like drastic changes in principles.
Absolutely,
Maybe the magnitude of effect might be somewhat different, but it's not going to be a crazy difference.
So get your fish oils in. That's why I put them in your plans, ladies.
Who was it that used to tell everyone to take like 10 fish oils a day?
Falcon.
It wasn't far off.
Yeah, but
just got fish all day.
I used to have to take about 12 as a female. So that with my HCLs, I smell lovely. My guts are great. So my for her tip this week is super simple, and it's going to be talking about rest days. I think it's something that we probably don't talk about enough, but I guess more from an anecdotal standpoint, I know you hear the term listen to your body all the time, and I think it's a little bit bullshit, but a little bit fact. I think listen to your body comes down to knowing where you're at with listening to your body. So someone, for example, that's a beginner as opposed to someone advanced in a training sense. So let's say you've been training for 6 months, as opposed to someone like me who's been in the gym for 8 or 10 years. You can listen to your body and understand the triggers and the signs of things that are telling you to take a couple of days off or take a rest from the gym, eat some more calories, all of these sort of things. And I think that a big thing is don't be scared to take this time if you feel like the time's right, because having a couple of days off can have so many benefits. And I'm talking more from weight, so benefits on recovery, benefits on sleep, so many different things. So yeah, ladies, I think in particular, the ones that are often overtrained, underfed, the amount of girls that come to me, they're on 1,000 calories a day and training for 3 hours a day, and they've been doing that for 3 years. Like, have a fucking break, eat some calories. Like, if you're feeling like shit, if your hormones are out of whack, and you know that from changes in your menstrual cycle or blood work, then give yourself a rest. Like, beating yourself up at times isn't going to get the result you want. You may even go backwards. So yeah, have a break, allow your body to recover. I noticed another thing that a lot of girls will see is that a lot of the time they've been smashing themselves and their weight doesn't drop, and then they all of a sudden have a couple of days off, and then they jump on the scales and they're a kilo lighter. And they wonder why, and it's not often, I guess, the case of like you've de-stressed and it's a cortisol response. I don't believe that. It's a case that you've let go of some of the inflammation probably within your body as well, and that might be the cause of the weight drop on the scale. So yeah, it might be mainly fluid, but at the same time, I guess mentally understanding that not constantly pushing yourself is going to be the answer. Where do you guys sit in terms of, I guess, rest days and on that, Shawnee?
I'm a huge proponent of them because I think that even guys, we're chasing hypertrophy, so we're chasing muscle gain so much that we think that the gains come in the gym, when really the gym's just the stimulus, and then the recovery is where the gains come from. So you're using training to stimulate inflammation, so you then get a response to get bigger. You know, if you're just smashing yourself 7 days a week, you never give yourself time to actually get bigger. You know, it's like, I remember when I was a skinny little motherfucker when I was 57 kilos, and I was training 6-7 days a week because I thought the more I train, the bigger I'll get. And one of the trainers, some massive dude in the gym, he said to me, drop down to 4 days a week instead of 6 or 7 days a week, and overnight, which I don't even remember going from 57, I woke up and I was like 82. You know, just from training less because my body had time to actually recover.
Yeah.
So, you know,
especially for newbies. Newbies and beginners and natural athletes as well. Yeah. What's your take on?
I train every day.
I would agree with Sean there. Like I've just finished a contest prep, and obviously hitting it pretty hard at the end stages of contest prep. Because I don't think you have that luxury to.
No, there's not that choice.
3 or 4 days a week. But right now, I am only training 4 days a week. With 3 rest days, because I think that you do get that adaptive resistance to high volumes of training, and you need to selectively choose times to scale back things and set a new baseline of volume.
When you can.
From that point, you can progress slowly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think volume is one of the things that people don't think about enough of when it comes to getting a result.
It's so stupid because every
we monitor nutrition
study in history has shown that volume is
exactly. And I find that the hardest for my female clients, because when they come out of comp prep, I do the same thing as you. We scale back to 3 or 4 days a week, and they all hate it because they're like, well, I want to make gains, and I'm like, yeah, I get that, but you've been doing 25, 30 working sets and this volume, now we need to taper back to 15, 20 a session and this volume, and they're going, but I'll go backwards, and it's explaining it's not what happens. We need to set that, it's like you reverse dieting, you need to set a new training standpoint, and a lot of girls forget about that because they're worried about fat gain so much, and that's the big scarcity factor. It's like, well, if I taper back on training to 5 days a week, then I'm going to get fat overnight. It's not going to happen. So
same with muscle loss. You're not going to lose muscle when calories are reasonable. It's just not going to happen. Like I was reading one paper a couple of weeks ago and sort of suggesting that losing muscle is almost twice as hard as gaining it.
Yeah, I'm having that problem right now.
Like taking a week off and like eating at maintenance, like you're not going to go backwards into the muscle. Not at all.
I think a lot of people just overestimate. I think guys as well, they take their very, very end of day weight when they have like 6 litres of water.
I can't imagine a female ever doing that.
No, guys are terrible for it, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm 98 kilos." They'll get sick or take a week off, and all of a sudden they've lost 8 kilos. Like, that's your actual weight. You haven't lost any muscle.
And girls are the opposite.
You've taken shit, and you haven't got 6 meals in you. That's what you actually weigh.
Yeah, girls will go, I trained less and I lost weight, and I'm like, no, you probably lost fluid. Like, not doing that continuously. I bet you won't drop again next week if you only train that same amount.
You see my legs after I train legs; they look like sausages.
Yeah, so girls, if you've got your periods and you've done 3 leg days that week, you're probably going to have a bit of inflammation. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, my weight went up 1 kilo in 3 days this week, and I, freaked out, and then I looked at my photos and everything was the same, my measurements were the same. So I guess I'm just trying to explain that, when you are premenstrual, when you are more fluid retentive, all these things going on, it doesn't mean you've gained fat. I think that's the big thing. It's just understanding that there's changes and fluid changes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, your weight can change so much within a few days just by even like sodium intake, carb intake, all these different variables.
That could be why using weekly average body weight can be very beneficial to some of those fluctuations. So
absolutely.
If you're looking at where your weight is at on a weekly basis as opposed to day to day, it can sort of take.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of day-to-day weigh-ins with clients. Like sometimes a day-to-day than an average, but generally, it's not. But then it's hard as well.
I think females is different. You weigh yourself every day, you get kind of a bit obsessed with it, and it's like, it goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down. I think guys are kind of different. We
don't really care.
No, we don't really care, and we see it at the end of the week and take that average, and we kind of know the number.
I definitely don't think nutrition or training adjustments should be made on the basis of a day-to-day.
No, absolutely not. You shouldn't go, oh my God, my weight's gone up quick.
they'll see their weight come up 800 grams a day, and that following day they'll scale back food.
And then you're like, what did you do yesterday? Oh, you did leg day and it was high carb day. Oh, okay. You know, that's the thing. And that's, if you are a coach, that's the things you want to look at. Like if a client's weight, say, has jumped up a good kilo or kilo and a half, then have a look at what they've done that few days before. Have a look at what's gone on. And females, have a look at where your menstrual cycle is. All of that can have such a big effect. All right, so supplements. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first one, I'm going to kind of let you guys talk because you know a lot more about this stuff than me. I guess I can touch on it a little bit. But the big one I want to talk about first is protein powder. Like protein powder is probably the one I get asked about the most. I'm sure you guys get asked all the time by people. What was your first ever protein powder you bought?
Optimum Nutrition.
I
was in America.
Why did you pick it?
It was a 20-pound bag.
Yeah.
For one, and I think in America, I'm sure it was not much more than $100 for like a 20-pound bag.
So you went for bang for your buck.
I went bang for the buck. Yeah. GNC, walked in there. I'm pretty sure the dude actually said this is the kind of cheapest and best one. You know, so yeah, just the gold standard. Which I'm pretty sure it's a blend, isn't it?
They've got both, but I think it was a blend originally. I think it was WPC. Yeah,
I was happy with that. I gained 25 kilos in a year. So
yeah, it must have just been the protein.
Just protein. I had like 6 shakes a day. I'm just like, right, that's the source of all gains. So just
and you're on your creatine cycle.
I was on the creatine as well. Yeah. Talking about creatine. Yours?
Mine's probably a bit funnier. I reckon I was about 16. And Inaloo Muscleworks had just opened.
Was I working there?
No, she stole it.
But so I went in. I was playing football at the time, so I was like 65, 70 kilos, like soaking wet. And I just started up at the gym. I went in there, and some of the NARD was working, and like. To a 65-kilo kid, like, seeing someone, I was like, oh shit.
This isn't somebody bigger.
I don't know.
She was,
She looked like a freaking beast. She probably still is a beast.
She just had a baby, so someone's probably listening.
And I asked her, I'm looking to put on weight, blah, blah, and she sold me, I think,
Here you go, Summer.
10-pound bag of mutant mass or monster mass. I think the shake had like 1,200 calories in it, and it wasn't a scoop; it was a shovel.
I remember that. I remember that product.
4 shovels.
And I was like, "Damn, this girl was telling me to get this, and she looks like a beast, so I'm gonna get it." And like I'm going home and I'm putting this shovel of powder like in my shake, and like you can fill the whole shake full of water, but there's that much powder in there.
Thick,
it's like, it's like.
That means that one had a lot of calories. I remember that one.
It's crazy. Yeah, so that was me.
Did it work though?
Well, maybe.
I
got like.
Well done.
At that time, I was probably always in a deficit because I always trained so much. And me a little puberty boy. So I probably just leveled out my like energy balance somewhat. So I was able to actually progress in the gym and make those newbie gains. But I don't think I bought another bag.
I just find it masculine.
They're so thick. And I guess we can touch on those too. My first one was before the supplement shops were open. So mine was in Coles and it was Musashi.
Oh yeah.
Because it was the only one out. That was the only thing. And then
every good life used to stop. Musashi.
And then Body Science, the ladies one, which was like a pink, and that was the only other. It was a WPI. So All right. So in terms of protein powders, I guess I'll throw these at you guys. Girls will say to me, okay, what's the best protein powder to take for a lean protein? That's the most common thing I get asked. So I guess, Jackson, you can start off on this one. Explain, I guess, to people what we'd be looking for in a protein powder and what's the actual benefit of it and is it necessary for general pop?
Okay, so when we're talking about lean protein, essentially that just means sort of low proportion of carbohydrate and fat. Now we're looking at sort of So that I'd straight away go say whey protein is your base. Now you've got a few variations. You've got isolate, concentrate, and the hydrolysate. And so your concentrate is going to have the lowest proportion of protein per weight. I believe it's around 80%. So 80% of that powder is going to be protein, which means that there's going to be a little higher carb and fat count. So if you want the leanest protein, you sort of potentially don't want to go with the concentrate. With isolate, it's, I guess you can say, more pure protein because more of the weight of the powder is actually protein.
It's like 90 to 95 milligrams.
Yeah, something like that. And so the carbon fat count is sort of, well, I won't say a lot lower, like when we're talking.
We're talking like a gram.
Yeah, we're talking grams.
It's
here,
really
like
not.
less than 10 grams. Like it's not going to be drastic changes to body composition. So in terms of lean protein, isolate is probably your best bet. And then when we're talking about hydrolyzed proteins, what that's really saying is that the isolate protein's gone through another processing phase where
Filtration, isn't it?
Breaking down.
Yeah. So what it does is it takes the peptide bonds that make up a protein and it breaks some of them down into tri and dipeptides. And all that means is that when you consume a hydrolyzed protein, like a hydrolyzed whey, that the gastric emptying or the absorption is a lot faster. Now, someone like this sort of follows on to a nutrient timing debate, and says, and we can sort of say, okay, well,
you don't want to miss your anabolic window.
Exactly. It's like one rationale is to say, okay, well, if we take a hydrolyzed protein after our workout, that's the fastest absorbing, so we get the very quick raise in muscle protein synthesis, as opposed to if we took a concentrate where it might take a little bit longer to absorb and whatnot. But when you actually look at the research, this is a really minimal factor. And what you should really concern yourself with is how much protein are you consuming over 24 hours. And probably and
satiety.
And they just had a sort of a systematic review published last, I think it was this month, and it sort of looked at how much protein can you absorb per meal for anabolic processes and how should you split it up. And it generally, what they sort of said was, don't worry about timing too much. Just try and get 3 to 5 protein feedings per day, split up at times that are practical for you, and try and get a reasonable serve of maybe 13 grams of protein per bolus feeding, and that should pretty much cover you. So in terms of I guess, body composition benefits of isolate or hydrolyzed protein, I don't think it's going to have any benefit.
And you're looking at spending $100 as opposed to $50, $60. So go for the cheaper one, we're saying.
That's what I say is, they're so similar in the terms of the 24-hour period. If you're going to hit your protein, it makes no difference. Look at the cotton.
You're cheap ass.
I'm a cheap ass, so I look at dollar per serve, basically, and how much protein you're getting. Because some of the blends and concentrates are less than 80.
Yeah, they're underdosed.
So if you, what was that really good tasting chocolate one?
Proto Whey. But terrible. You had to use 2 scoops and it was 20 grams of protein.
Protein, so it tastes amazing, but it's fucking expensive, for that. But then on the contrary, hydrolyzed protein is pretty expensive.
And it's unnecessary. And there was a big trend where everyone, I remember when I worked at MuscleWorks for a while, was wanting hydrolyzed, and I kept saying why? It's not. Unless you're someone that I found with hydrolyzed, when consuming it was filtered through very quickly. I didn't feel full, any of that. So if say you're trying to make gains and you don't want to feel full and you're trying to get calories in, but then you want to do the opposite if you're dieting, because having a shake and utilizing 150 calories on a protein shake for me, when I'm dieting, I'd rather eat food. So at the end of the day,
I think where it really originated was this anabolic window fallacy and people assuming that they needed to get a fast-acting protein source inside their system within 30 minutes after training. And more research has come out, and we sort of know that this anabolic window is more of a barn door, and you sort of, as long as you're getting a reasonable serving of protein sort of within, assuming you're not fasted when you train. I think if you're fasted with training, there's evidence to suggest you want to get some protein in quite quickly.
Of course.
But if you are eating at a sort of maybe 1 or 2 hours before your session, most of the research suggests that as long as you're getting something in sort of within 4 hours after your workout, you're going to maximise your protein sources.
4 hours.
I
remember thinking
not 20 minutes.
I was exactly the same.
We took their shake to the gym with them.
And the car, and I'd have my rice cakes and my shake.
And they're trying to talk to you at the gym, you're like, I've got to go home and get a shake.
100%. I was like, I can't sit this, I've got to sit up there. There's seconds ticking away.
That's the thing, is it 20 minutes as soon as you finish your workout, you
Yeah,
start
what
sipping
point?
it.
What if you have a 2-hour workout as opposed to a 1-hour
Yeah.
workout? Then does your window
You get
change?
cardio.
It sounds stupid when you say it like
Yeah.
that. It was so real.
Yeah.
It was so real 5
Yeah.
years ago. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So I guess touching on protein powders, so we've talked, I guess, WPC, WPI, we're saying to you guys, bang for your buck, look at the protein amount per 100 grams and compare them all across the board and look for the one with the highest amount. That's going to be your leanest, I guess, source of protein, but there is no fat burning protein, there is no this, there is no that. That is bullshit. So if you see a product that says, this is a fat burning protein, Sean, what would probably be in that for them, I guess, to label it that?
Oh, they can put lots of shit in there these days, but caffeine and they put things like carnitine.
In a protein.
We'll go into carnitine in a second. I think that leads us into carnitine next, but any of these supposed fat burners, fat metabolizing.
Green tea is another one they throw in, yeah. Or ketones.
And
So
do you know what
many.
that's doing? That's just wasting your money.
Wasting your protein.
Even
Yeah.
Aussie tea oil.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. That was in
okay,
Protoway actually.
Let's add fat into our
It wasn't
shakes
Protoway.
to burn more fat.
That's why Protoway tasted nice. Yeah.
So don't.
There's
Like,
no
that's
point.
why I say look at the ingredients and just look for protein.
Yeah, because a lot of
I think a good way to say it is don't look at like whey or protein supplements as ergogenic, meaning providing some sort of extra benefit to body composition. Just look at it as food, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another protein source.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it should be seen. And a lot of pregnant women always ask me, can I take protein when I'm pregnant? And I'm like, there is nothing wrong with the protein powder. You just don't want to get a fat burner because then you're looking at caffeine and other things that you might not want while you're pregnant. But if you're looking at a plain, pure protein, WPI, WPC, no crap in it, you're safe. So now we're going to talk vegan protein, and we're going to talk also, what was the other one? Pea protein
Collagen.
and collagen protein.
Do you know much about the collagen? Or?
So if you want to touch on vegan first?
Yeah. So the issue with vegan proteins is, so let's say pea protein or something like that. We know that there's 9 essential amino acids that need to be consumed through the diet. And we know that vegan protein sources don't contain all 9 essential amino acids. So, and to build muscle tissue, like to build a gram of tissue, you need all 9 essential amino acids present. You can't build muscle without all the amino acids. And there's research to show that when you compare equal protein serves of a soy protein and a pea protein, wheat protein, and whey protein, that the vegan sources don't stimulate muscle protein synthesis as much as whey protein do.
Yeah.
Now, how much of that is going to affect your sort of progress in the gym over months? I don't really know.
Hard to quantify.
It's very hard to quantify, but like the data is there to suggest that vegan proteins just aren't as anabolic as complete proteins such as whey, casein, and meat and things like that. So,
even egg white protein.
Eggs is a great protein, complete protein.
I think vegans tend to lack it's lysine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like, as a practical recommendation, like if you're looking to sort of get as close to optimality as you can, I can't see why you'd want to go towards a vegan.
If you don't need to.
Definitely you don't need to.
I had a client ask me the other day and she said, I'm just thinking about doing it for like my gut health, and I was like, why? Like it's not, if you're fine on whey and that's not affecting you, I said, is whey affecting you? If that is, then yeah, I get it, but I'd rather us just eat meat, you know, because you're going to get in those essentials. But if you're looking at, say, just looking at it from a standpoint of maybe one being better than the other, then whey will kill it like tenfold in terms
it's
of
the daddy
benefits.
every time, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
it wins, it's the daddy every time. It wins every time.
Yeah.
So
So what about for vegans, Shawnee? What are the main things, I guess, that like you said, the essentials that are missing mainly for most of the vegan proteins, looking at it comparative to whey?
they tend to be very low in leucine content, which obviously drives muscle protein synthesis. I'm pretty sure they're lacking lysine as well, so it's one of the essentials.
Yeah.
So that's why you hear a lot of like very knowledgeable vegans and vegetarians do supplement with lysine as well, and EAAs, because and obviously make sure the EAAs are vegan.
Yeah. So for anyone that's essential amino acids.
Yeah, essential amino acids. Yeah. So you're topping up those ones that you're missing. Basically.
Absolutely, that's the big thing. Yeah, and like we're going to go into branch chains and EAAs, and for EAAs, I always get that going the wrong way. But if you are vegan, that's where they actually come in, probably play a bigger role than somebody has a more broad spectrum diet. because you're missing out. And that's the thing, any vegans, you're going to have to supplement with more stuff. That's just the life of a vegan, because you're missing out on so many things. We're not opposed to vegans, I've got vegan clients, but it makes shit harder, basically. So you just kind of got to accept that and go, cool, what am I missing out on? So awesome. So what would be the big things, I guess, for a vegan? I don't know if either of you have looked at the differences between like rice, pea, what's the other main one? Wheat. But mainly rice and pea are kind of the two most common ones.
Rice ones,
What's the big difference?
They're the same. I think it's literally just missing the same ingredients because they're not complete proteins. They tend to miss the same ones. Then you hear people saying you can combine rice and pea proteins to potentially make more of a complete.
Because prana has a mix of the two.
But it's prana, and it's still classed as incomplete. So it's I would just say supplement with EAAs and you can fill that gap.
Yeah, because obviously the number one thing that vegans lack as a whole is protein intake. So protein powders for them are actually very useful in hitting their daily protein requirements. So it does make it more difficult for them when you've got these challenges. So again, not against it, but if you don't need to do it, don't do it, is what we're basically trying to say.
It's not healthier per se if you're trying to get some decent results in the gym.
Yeah.
One of your big drivers of your metabolism is muscle mass. So if you're thinking I'm going to be healthier by going vegan for health, you know what, you could be actually slowing your metabolism down.
Yeah, losing your gains.
Yeah, losing your gains. So, what's the next one? Collagen. Do you want to go into that one?
Collagen protein, yeah.
It's I don't know. It's been around for a while, collagen protein, but it's
sort of hyped up over the last.
It's always been used for hair, skin, and nails. Yeah. And all of a sudden,
it's a structural provision.
Yeah. Someone says it's superior to whey, and it's like.
So explain what actual collagen protein does within the body, then. Either of you, Jax, and probably your domain.
It's essentially like helps with regeneration of protein structures, which, like Sean said, hair, nails.
So it's not actually building muscle; it's just structural. Connective tissue. Yeah.
It is like collagen is one of the biggest. Like if we're looking at like protein within the body, like collagen is in most things really.
I think it's the most abundant protein in the body.
It is. Which is crazy because people will be like, oh, well,
don't we need it?
In terms of like the supplementation side of things, I think some of the companies that are pushing out these products have used very clever marketing.
Very clever.
And they use a logical rationale, where meaning by that you can sort of listen to this theoretical mechanism for which collagen may be superior to other protein sources. But when we look at the research and when we look at sort of high-level scientific bodies who have reviewed collagen versus other protein sources, we see collagen sort of falls on its ass. Like collagen has a protein score of 0.0. that is what they...
Can't get any worse.
That is what they scored it.
And so like, horrible bioavailability.
Terrible, but you'll read these companies saying that it's actually more bioavailable.
Which is a false claim.
Completely false.
Don't know why they're not getting sued.
Well, that's why they put that these
disclaimer.
These statements have not been verified by the FDA.
So if a product has that might be a red flag.
So following on from that, and some of these companies will sort of say, oh, we've got all these studies to show that collagen does this and that. But when you actually go and have a look, you see there could be some very low quality animal studies that sort of very low scientific rigor. I personally looked into collagen protein and there is no human trials, randomized control trials that exist.
From a muscle standpoint?
Standpoint. And when you look at the recent International Olympic Committee statement regarding collagen, who they sort of independently look at all different supplements and say, okay, for an athlete that's at a high competitive level, what do we recommend? Purely, but like, they don't put opinions.
No, they bias. They want the athletes to do well.
They don't get any kickback from companies or things like that. And they pretty much just came out and said collagen has a protein score of 0.0 and we have zero evidence to suggest...
So we're not going to put our athletes...
There is zero evidence that exists to suggest that collagen supplementation might have any benefits whatsoever to performance or recovery. So
So it might make your hair look nice and your nails.
When some of the best researchers in the world come out and say that, I tend to say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to spend $100 on this product.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
But it digests better in your stomach, apparently. Supposedly, yeah. Which it doesn't, because it's gluggy and fucking horrible.
Yeah.
But it does nothing. Or, I mean, you'll get lovely skin, hair, and nails and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have bad hair, skin, and nails?
Well, that's the thing. If you're using it from an aesthetic standpoint, sure, go nuts if you want to have a serve of it a day, but don't have that replace your normal source of protein.
Would you count it as your protein per day if you were?
There was no grams of calories in it either.
So I actually found one minor study on collagen, but it was in sarcopenic men, and they were like 60 to 80 years old, and it said that whey was far superior.
It's another one. Yeah.
So and that was a very small study.
Yeah.
When I say human, I'm usually talking about healthy human, like chronic disease states. Yeah.
Exactly, but then the companies will probably argue and say, well, there isn't studies against it, and it's like,
that's exactly it.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about anything research related. Like studies, if people don't understand, are very expensive. They take a very long time. They have a high dropout rate. You have a lot of biased and unbiased. You have a lot of outliers. Like there's so many things that can go wrong, which is why some scientific studies are amazing, but then some you really need to read the research to understand why it might not have given the best data, but companies will often jump on that and go, well, it said this, but we've only really had 10 people in the study, so it doesn't really give us a big enough, like, what's it called?
Basis
to really, make a statement about it. It's not really relevant, so...
That happens a lot.
Yeah. So...
Well, try and control someone's life. You've got one person, you need to control their entire life for 16 weeks, and then try and do that with 1,000 people.
Yeah, I think we had 60 in the start of my research when we did ours in dietetics, and at the end of our study we had 14.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty good.
we were trying to keep them for 6 months, so we couldn't come to a result because we didn't have a high enough amount of people basically to get a relevant score. So we're trying to say with research, be careful with your data. All right, next one, we're going to go into pre-workouts and fat burners. We can kind of group them together, I guess, a little bit. Let's start with fat burners. So a lot of girls want to know, the big one I get asked about all the time. We're not going to badmouth brands, but we're going to talk about them, what's in them, and, what is the benefit from that. So let's talk OxyShred. It's probably the most popular one on the market. They have great marketing at EHP.
Have they reformulated the ingredients?
Don't know.
Because I thought it had, didn't it have some banned shit in it?
DMA.
I thought it had DMAA in it.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe a little while ago. So I guess, Jackson, if someone's talking about a fat burner, what I guess are going to be the benefits that I guess they're looking for, and what are they actually going to expect, and what are maybe some of the ingredients that have been proven to assist with fat loss in terms of supplementation form?
Okay, so when it comes to fat burning, or taking a fat burning supplement, essentially two things that you could be potentially trying to get out of it would be to elevate metabolism through stimulants, or to expedite lipolysis, which is sort of fatty acid release from adipose or stored fat. Now, I'll just talk about sort of supplements that are pretty common. Caffeine is known to have a stimulatory effect, and so you'll get an acute raise in your metabolism. So you'll be expending more energy after caffeine. Now, there's other stimulants that will have a similar effect. Now, people might say, okay, well, we just always take these stimulants because we elevate our metabolic rate and we're burning more calories during this time. But with some of the research, when looking at different stimulants, what they see is, because the body's very clever, so you get this elevation in metabolism when you take the product, and then once it clears your system, you'd expect that your metabolism would come down to baseline. But because the body's so smart, it sometimes tends to counteract this and go below baseline. So when you're looking at your metabolism over 24 hours, it tends to not be any different. So in terms of like stimulants, I don't think when we're talking about like obviously legal stimulants, caffeine, and things like
Or
that.
speed or
Like
Cocaine's great.
be weary of it in terms of like
Especially
fat burning specifically.
Yeah.
Like I think caffeine is freaking great as an ergogenic
But let's
supplement.
call it what it is. Like it's just caffeine, like not a fat burner in terms of.
Yeah, I don't think the fat burning is great for caffeine, but I think the attentional focus, neural drive, like we know that give caffeine to strength athletes, they're going to perform better in the gym. Like that's known. So as a performance supplement, I think it's freaking great. I tend to not like implement it as a fat loss tool per se.
Yeah.
But a lot of time people will be ramping up stimulants during contest
Serum
prep.
low calories, got
And like,
yeah.
that's just to sort of get you through contest prep.
Exactly,
Like,
That's what's causing the fat burn.
exactly. Yeah.
You're just using caffeine to keep
Get
you
through it.
awake and
Yeah.
get your brain
And
working.
maintain some more
Which is
performance.
improvement.
Yeah, exactly.
But you need quite high amounts of caffeine. I remember seeing some 3 milligrams per kilo of body weight is kind of the minimum pre-workout. You work that out, if you're 60 kilos as a girl, that's 180 milligrams. And you look at, that's why a lot of these
So it
pre-workouts,
shows 150.
150, so it's not that bad. But then I remember Black Skull is 400
Yeah, there was
milligrams.
some that were 300-400 that came
Yeah.
out, and then they're not allowed to go any higher. I believe in 300 or 350 in Australia. It's somewhere around there now.
Are you sure?
Yeah, they did that. I remember but that was a few years ago. I remember they weren't allowed to actually put that in a product here. I know they can import it, but I don't think they can produce it here. There was a caffeine amount that they set for their pre-workouts and
I remember
stimulants
there was
around
That's
that.
funny because I was just looking at the sort of caffeine recommendations in the literature, and they sort of said 3 to 5 milligrams per kilo of body
Yeah.
weight was okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a 100 kilo dude, that's sort of saying 500.
Exactly.
They went up to
Okay.
8 in some of the studies and
Yeah.
said that you get reverse effects of about 9 milligrams per kilo. Imagine that. If you're 100, that's 900 milligrams. of
Yeah,
caffeine.
I don't think
That's 15
the tolerance threshold is higher than what people expect.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about, I guess, and in terms of a tolerance threshold, about taking breaks from stimulants then? If you're saying, yes, more caffeine because you're going to train better, you're going to have more focus, this and that, then you're going to get to a point where you're really tolerant at, say, like 800, 900 milligrams of caffeine a day. Do you guys believe in that, or do you believe that?
Well, it's funny because they just published a really cool study, and what they did, they gave the same caffeine dose to 2 groups. One group was a high caffeine user, and one group wasn't taking any caffeine for the last sort of 3 months. And what you would expect is that the high caffeine group wouldn't have as much of a performance benefit from this fixed dose of caffeine. But what they saw, I believe it was cycling time trial, what they saw was that it didn't really matter how much caffeine you're accustomed to, you still received equal benefits from the fixed caffeine dose. So that throws into question this theory of tolerance moving up, because you speak to any gym bro, they're like, oh bro, like every 4 weeks you gotta like go a week off caffeine, and like, well, I don't think that's entirely true. Like when we look at the data here, and I think psychological aspects could come into it. Like people are tricking themselves into thinking that I had 1 scoop last week, now I've got to have 1.5 scoops because my tolerance built up so quickly. I don't think the tolerance is as quick as people think.
And I think it's sometimes some of the other ingredients, that can throw people off as well. Because I remember I was in Thailand a few years ago with a client who'd never taken anything like that, wasn't really a caffeine drinker, any of that. And I had a pre there, and we were going to go train, and she never uses it, and she had a scoop, and it wasn't even something crazy, it was like some crappy fat burner. I think it was like 150 milligrams, and she was like sweating, and she was hot, and she was like, I feel tingling, this and that, and I had a look at it, and I was like, I think it's the other ingredients. I don't think it's so much the caffeine. I think it was a bit alanine. I think it was this. It was like, that's what's causing you to go red, and the niacin, and this and that. So I think people get confused as well, like, is it the caffeine, or what is some of the other stuff? And that's what I want to talk about now, that's in these pre's, in these fat burners, that I guess are things we want people to look for, be wary of, and maybe what are the good things in there that might actually help with like focus, obviously things like taurine. What are some of the ingredients you would like if a client's looking at a pre or a fat burner? Because we're not opposed to them, I guess it's just being smart with what you're going to expect from it. I would say if you're expecting to burn fat from it specifically, that's not what's happening, but the side effect of it might be that you can train longer, train harder, and then in turn that might help with fat loss. So let's just call it what it is. So what are some good ingredients that might help with people focus-wise, pump-wise, strength-wise?
My list is fairly short.
Yeah.
It's sort of like caffeine, and then alongside that, sort of more of a new wave supplement, is this teagreen, and that sort of gained popularity to suggest, because in the research has shown that the tolerance to teagreen, which is very similar to that caffeine through the pathways that it activates physiologically, the tolerance is a lot slower to teagreen. So I think they're fairly safe bets. If we go like any pre-workout, you sort of blend. They're sort of looking at something to stimulate, something that can help muscle endurance and something that can help the muscle pump. So if we look at things that supposedly,
so let's say beta-alanine, monohydrate,
so muscle endurance,
arginine,
beta-alanine. So beta-alanine works by increasing your muscle storage of this amino acid called carnosine. And carnosine is a muscle buffer, which means when you accumulate lactic acid, carnosine acts as a buffering mechanism to essentially, very basically excrete the lactic acid.
So when your balls deep in a set of leg extensions?
Maybe. The problem I have with beta-alanine, I have a couple of problems with it. Firstly, people think that like they take beta-alanine, you get the tingles, and then like bang, like you're getting the benefits. Like you drink it, 20 minutes later you're gonna have the benefits. But in all the research, it's shown you actually need to be taking 2 to 5 grams every day for at least 7 to 14 days to increase your muscle carnosine
and you get about
stores.
1,500 in most of these. Yeah.
Is that milligrams?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're underdosed, and
3.2.
sometimes people are taking these products intermittently, so they might have it on one day for like.
Well, maybe you train 4 days a week.
Exactly. So like you're getting the tingles, the paresthesia,
doesn't mean
but
that
you're not exactly getting the performance benefits.
Yeah.
And another problem I have with beta-alanine is when you really look at the research, is it's sort of middle distance events that this is helping.
Yeah.
So this is like consistent efforts for longer than a minute. And I don't know too many guys, like unless you're doing this super slow, like time and attention training, such type thing, that are, like have consecutive like efforts that are longer than 60 seconds in the gym.
Yeah.
So I'm not really convinced that beta-alanine is going to have much benefit.
We
to
tested it when I was a runner.
A strength athlete. If you're running 400s,
that's what we were testing. We were testing it for 4s and 8s.
Hell yeah, give them like enrollers who rode like 2Ks. Hell yeah, you give.
We did it for bouts of 400s of training, like to 10 400s a minute recovery, and I felt it helped, but it may have been, again, it's hard to tell, but definitely we found our recovery was improved between the bouts. We were not as heavy in the legs when you went back into the next bout of training, and there's been a lot of research, because it got approved. I remember it was approved by WACE, so athletes can use it. It's one of the safe ingredients, but again, like you said, use it for the right thing.
Yeah, like there's good data on beta-alanine.
What about for someone like CrossFitters then, maybe?
But like,
dependent on what
I think maybe I don't know too much about CrossFit, but like I assume they're doing efforts for longer than a minute.
Not always, because sometimes they're doing like working up to like a couple of rep max or different things like that with shortened bouts.
I think it depends on the round. Like if they're doing their
if it's like an EMOM every minute on the minute or something.
And they have to do like runs, like long runs.
It'd definitely be beneficial.
It would be pretty good for CrossFit.
I think so too. Yeah.
You just need to be wary of that chronic loading that you need to take place to actually get the performance benefits from it. Now some people might be like, oh well, I don't really care about the endurance benefits. I just want the tingles before. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. Like,
I hate them.
If you want the tingles, then like go for it.
But it's not going to do much.
It's not going to do much.
I think that's the thing. I think almost with some things, people want to feel something or they want to like see something, and they're like, it's almost like when people say, oh well, I don't think I've had a good workout because I don't have DOMs, and I'm like, being sore isn't a sign of a good workout, which is what we talked to Lane about on the podcast we did with him. It's much the same with products. If you're feeling jittery or shaky or red or this or that, it doesn't mean that's the goal of the product.
I feel jittery after my protein shake. It's not working.
Don't see my gains swapping. So what about some other ingredients? Common ones?
I think if we just go to like common pump products. So I'll go straight with citrulline and arginine because they're sort of interrelated. So most products will either have a citrulline or an arginine, supposedly help with pump. Now, citrulline, when you take that in, that's going to increase, that's a precursor to arginine within the body. So you take in more citrulline, you're going to ramp up your arginine levels in the blood. Alternatively, you could bypass the citrulline and just take arginine. And the idea is that arginine causes production of nitric oxide. increased levels of nitric oxide in the blood. And what nitric oxide does is it dilates your blood vessels, so you get more blood flow and, in theory, better nutrient supply and better oxygen supply. And those two both things have been shown to help performance. You get more oxygen to your working muscles and more nutrients to your working muscles, and you're also better able to excrete waste products more efficiently. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem with citrulline and arginine is the pathway that it goes through. To make nitric oxide, it needs this enzyme called nitric oxide synthase. Now, there's only a limited number of these enzymes that are floating around. So you get to a point where no matter how much arginine is floating around, it's just going to get wasted if it's not being bound to this enzyme, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's very, very rate limited, meaning like you tend to not, when we look at research and we ramp up these guys' arginine intake or citrulline intake, it tends to not increase nitric oxide that much.
Yeah.
Because we just have that issue with the enzyme. It's really slowing down the conversion. So one way to sort of solve this issue, and it's less popular, but it's starting to gain some research attention, is by using nitrates as opposed to citrulline or arginine. And what nitrates do, when you take them in the mouth, it converts to nitrite. And then nitrite in the body can get directly converted into nitric oxide without the need for nitric oxide synthase. So you're bypassing that whole pathway. So taking in nitrates, which are very common or very highly dosed in beetroot juice, beetroot powder, and things like that, in my opinion, and like just going off what the research says, is a much more efficient way of increasing nitric oxide levels in the blood. So I'd be more keen to have a pre-workout with a nitrate salt.
Get on your beetroot juice.
Even like you can get creatine nitrate and things like that. You can take 2 to 5 grams of creatine nitrate pre-workout, and that's a hefty serve of nitrate, and that's going to really pump you up like in terms of nitric oxide. So I do think that there's enough data to suggest that increasing nitric oxide will have performance benefits. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't think citrulline or arginine supplementation is the way to do that. So I think they're...
So just a less efficient pathway than just going straight to nitric oxide.
I think they're lousy products.
Yeah.
Another lousy...
I think they've been dispelled quite a lot, actually.
Like I think we know, but like general
still
still in.
Yeah.
Well, other ones would be, I guess, taurine. It's a popular one.
All of your cognitive ones. What are your views or opinions on the cognitive ones? Like, I think
cognitive's obviously hard to research because how can you read?
I hate qualitative data. So it's like we're like making scientific studies based on like what people are telling you they feel and things like that. Because I just feel like there's just so many variables that come into play.
Yeah, what if you just had a shit day? Like there's just too much out there.
Personally, I don't recommend any like cognitive enhancing supplements.
Not ketones?
No.
Not keto OS?
Like supplementing with neurotransmitters and stuff is a huge thing.
It's funny because Brad Schoenfeld just talked about neurotransmitters, and for those who don't know, Brad Schoenfeld is a very, very high-ranking PhD in the States.
He's pumping out so much shit.
He publishes in sort of the highest impact journals that there are related to nutrition and physiology, and he did his own personal review on neurotransmitters. So I think that includes like rhodiola and things like that, and what's the other one? HTP and GABA's one as well. There's a few like you hear people talking about, and he just pretty much came out and said like there's just no data to show what these things do.
Yeah,
like,
you're literally getting into someone's brain.
Yeah, and like it's hard because people always want this edge and they want to be like, oh, like GABA could be this sexy thing that no one else is taking, but I'll take it. And
you're
like,
seeing it in a lot of products.
Yeah,
but you see it in pre-workouts and then you see it in sleep formulas.
Yeah,
and it's like, do you really understand how these neurotransmitters
I don't think they
are
do.
working?
I really don't think they do.
And there's a lot of negative feedback loops between 2 different neurotransmitters.
Exactly.
As well.
And especially the complexity of neurotransmitters, it's not something I really want to fuck around with.
No.
Like just when I don't understand, like no one understands really how they're working because you can't measure. Like it's very hard to quantify like neurotransmitter levels and things like that.
Your acetylcholine.
Yeah, very hard to, and that's why there's no data out there because you can't quantify these things. But you still have fitness professionals and coaches saying
bros in the gym.
You need to take your GABA and your rhodiola to regulate or normalize neurotransmitters, but there's no like practical way to even know that your neurotransmitters are changing in a certain way. Like it's just all subjective sort of perception of what's going on.
And it's hard to remove like bias and placebo somewhat, like in that sense.
Like one thing that I've heard is people will say like, oh, after a contest prep you've depleted all your neurotransmitters. Like, how do you know? Like what do you got?
What
like,
tests
you can't quantify this, number one. So how do you even know that they're depleted?
Yeah.
Like so.
You also depleted your balls.
Yeah, I think the same with training. Like a lot of the time people will say, oh, when you do like, say powerlifting, for example, and you're doing a lot of heavy singles and doubles and people say, oh, you've got full on CNS burnout and stuff like this. It's like, do you really? Or like, what's actually going on? You just had a few shit nights sleep probably and need a bit more recovery, or your volume's just increased and you just need a bit of a taper. Like, and I guess like the biggest thing we're trying to say with all of this is some of this stuff hasn't been studied yet or hasn't been in depth. It doesn't mean that.
I was thinking a lot on it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that like that means that it's wrong. It just means that there's not enough research to say, yeah, 100% this is worth your money. Is what we're trying to say.
And like when guys like Brad Schoenfield, who are literally some of the smartest guys in this field, come out and say, yeah, look, we don't know what's happening. Yeah. Don't spend your money.
Yeah.
I listen to that.
Don't spend your money.
I listen to that. Like I'm not going to listen to the back of the label.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to listen to the guys who have been researching this field for years and years as a professional. Like they're the dudes I listen to.
Yeah. So be smart with who you listen to and smart where you actually spend your money rather than just, you know, going off some claim because some girl on Instagram standing there handing the packet. Like let's be a little more intelligent than that.
That's the big one at the moment is social media and Instagram.
It ruins things, doesn't it? Yeah.
Ambassadors for certain products telling you it works. You know?
Yeah, and that's the hard thing. Like, obviously, even with companies I've worked with before and they've wanted me to stand and promote products, and I'm like, I can't comfortably put a post up about that because I don't believe in the claims that it's making or certain things about it. So just,
none of us are ever going to get supplement sponsorships.
Says me who's currently sitting with one.
But you take the basic ones, you know. So it's I think the one that would be great to talk about is carnitine.
Yeah.
Definitely. You know, everyone takes 3 grams of this and 3 grams of that of carnitine 3 times a day.
Well, I'll I guess speak on this one because I have been in the past to put it in a lot of clients' plans. I'll be honest because when I worked with Lane, he put it in my plan, and when I've worked with coaches, they've put it in my plans, and I've probably been a little lazy, and I have gone and done a fair bit of research on it. But a lot of the research that I've read is a little bit skewed. But then the most recent data that's come out has basically said, yeah, it's not efficient.
Not much.
But this is the problem. There's new research coming out all the time, which is what we want you guys to understand. So one thing might be coming out and saying one thing in one study, and then a few years later, a more in-depth studies come out that's more, I guess, you know, it might be done on athletes as opposed to, like Jackson said, a sedentary population. So then we're getting better research on is that actually going to work. So this is what we're trying to say. Researchers will also be the first ones to admit maybe when they're not fucked up, but maybe when they've believed one thing and then it's been disproved with another study. So yeah, let's talk carnitine and some of the newer research while they're eating cookies that are made for the boys.
I hope these are low calorie. So carnitine, the way it works in the body is it's a transport molecule, and it binds to fatty acids and it moves them to the mitochondria for where they can be burnt. So essentially, it's seen as this fat burning molecule. So then the theoretical rationale that's been born out of that is that by increasing levels of carnitine in the body, we can increase our ability to move fatty acids to the mitochondria and therefore burn more fat. But the major issue that we face when looking at the research is when they've given these subjects big doses of carnitine, and then they take muscle biopsies to see how much did the carnitine increase in their muscle cells, which is where we need it for it to have its effects. We see that carnitine levels don't really go up. And the reason for that is because under normal circumstances, we already have fairly saturated carnitine levels within our muscle, which means essentially they're full of carnitine already, which means you can pour this carnitine in the blood, but it's not going to make its way to the muscle cell.
Yeah.
And it needs to be in the muscle cell for it to have its fat burning effects.
What about injectable carnitine?
Injectable is still faces the same problem. Now, like one of like the problems with oral carnitine is that the stomach kills a lot of it, just destroys it. So you actually don't get much in the blood anyway when taking it orally. But still, when you inject it, you're sort of bypassing the gastric system. So you can get it in the blood, but we still face that same problem of how do we get it into the muscle.
Yeah.
Now, there have been some studies to show that when you take carnitine with insulin, which is a massive driver, storage hormone, that you can supersaturate your muscle cells with carnitine. So you can get a sort of super physiological level of carnitine in the muscle cells. Now, in theory, that might lead to.
And they're never going to do a study on that because we're not going
to. Well, they have done a study on it.
Just dosing people on insulin.
Yes.
Wow.
Not like athletes though, or who do they? Yes.
They've given insulin, and they've seen that they can increase muscle carnitine stores.
Yeah.
So
we're not saying we're on insulin, guys.
Yeah. So, and that's practicing in sort of I won't say like pro bodybuilding or open bodybuilding.
Yeah.
That is something that they use.
Do, yeah.
They will take their carnitine with insulin to get this supersaturation effect of carnitine, to sort of enhance fatty acid oxidation. But they've also done studies to show that if you take your carnitine with a relatively big bolus of carbohydrates, you get that surge of insulin just from physiological levels of insulin through your pancreas, and you can increase carnitine levels beyond what they normally are. So then you might think, okay, cool. But then you think, okay, well, when would I usually be taking carnitine? It's like, well, when I'm trying to burn fat, probably in pre-contest, my carbohydrates are probably restricted, so I'm not going to be able to have that luxury of having a big serving of carbohydrates with my carnitine. So I think we get back at that same problem. So for the most part, for 90% of people who aren't pro bodybuilders, I don't think carnitine is going to have any value, and unless you sort of want to dance with the devil with the insulin protocols.
And it's a counterproductive fat burner, really. And it's a fat mobilizer more than fat burner.
Correct.
I think that's where people go wrong is.
Just because something's moving, it doesn't mean.
You've still got to burn it. At the end of the day, you've got so much carnitine in your muscle anyway, you probably would have mobilised it anyway. So at the end of the day, calories in, calories out. If your calories are in a deficit, then you're going to be mobilising fat through endogenous carnitine. But you've still got to go and do cardio and burn it.
You've still got to move your ass.
Yeah, well, it's like you can. I know they did some studies with CLAs. They all talk about CLAs. And there was some that say that you can mobilise the fat through CLAs, but you literally just restore it. And they did some where you actually stored it in different areas on your body. So you still have the same amount of fat, but they're saying that you moved it from the belly to put straight to another place.
Wouldn't that be great if you just move it to your bum?
Yeah.
You guys can just move it to
the actual factor, I don't know, but that was a self-funded study. How do you get rid of belly fat? You mobilise it to somewhere else.
Move it to your ass.
So carnitine, not so much.
Unless you're using, like we said, and dosing that with slim and high amounts, which for the average person.
If you have the carbs, go for it.
Maybe off season. But again, what's the point of an off season? So let's look at what are you trying to achieve? Is that product aligning with your goal? And then make an informed decision. Because I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people, especially when I worked at Muscleworks, girls chronically would come in and say, I need a fat burner, I want to lose weight. And the first question I would ask them is, how is your diet? And they wouldn't care. So what I'm saying is, stop spending money on stuff if you're not prepared to do the work. I think a supplement is there to supplement a good diet, good training, but it's not going to be a band-aid for the other problems that are going on with even lifestyle factors. Fix some other shit up before you worry about some supplement that's going to help with your sleep. Maybe just work on your sleep first and work on your stress levels and how you're managing, your lifestyle variables when it comes to this as well. Okay, so the other ones we want to touch on is aminos and EAAs. So explain the difference, Shawnee, for branched chain amino acids and EAAs.
Well, branched chain amino acids are part of the 9 essential amino acids. So it's funny because what?
So your common ones are going to be generally valine, isoleucine.
Leucine, isoleucine, valine. That's your 3 branch chains. Obviously, most aminos are dosed a 2-on-1 ratio to leucine and then isoleucine and valine at 1-1, because apparently that's what it is in nature. You do get ones that are 8 and 10 1-1. I don't know if there's any studies saying they're any better, but 2-on-1's fine. But
it's funny with those 8 to 1-1s. You're probably getting a total serve of 5 grams of BCAAs. So it's just 8 to 1-1. It's pretty much just leucine. So I think that's funny.
I think. Why use branch chains when you can use aminos is the thing these days. If branch chains are part of the essential amino acids, then why not go the whole hog and get you all 9 essentials? I mean, as long as you're still getting, I don't know what the studies are in terms of like what they're saying stimulates muscle protein synthesis these days. I know it was 3 grams of leucine at one point. They say keeps it stimulated.
That's water.
That's water being poured into a cup. Just going for a quick urination. But I think as long as you're still getting a good dose of the leucine to stimulate, the muscle protein synthesis, then I would go for essential amino acids over branch chains, because you're getting the whole hog as opposed to just part of it.
Well, let's explain to people, where do essentials even come from originally? Because let's get back to like the basics of it. Because do you need to take this, or can you just get it from food?
You can get it from
exactly.
You can get it from food, exactly. And it comes back to someone tells you because they've been told by someone who was their coach, okay, you need to take amino acids when you're training. And so I get that if you're 300 pounds and you're needing 400 grams of protein a day and you're so catabolic when you train, because I remember Jay Cutler said he used to go to sleep and wake up 5 to 6 pounds lighter. Like how many of us lose 6 pounds on sleep? You wake up and you're pretty much the same weight as you went to sleep, or a little bit lighter. If you're someone like that, then yeah, fair enough, you might need to supplement with essentially amino acids. Or if you're training for like 2 to 3 hours, then fair enough.
So let's explain.
If you're hitting your protein content, then no.
Well, let's explain to people what proteins they're found in most commonly. Like, what are they in? So what people know. Okay, well, because I know, for example, a lot of girls that I coach don't eat red meat. So a lot of these girls are missing out on a lot of things that are in red meat. And that is when sometimes we will look down the EA route and look at like what they might be missing out on in those things, and they're just eating chicken and fish. So what are we looking at when we're talking about our essentials? What are the main foods we're getting them from? Like, let's break it down.
Any meat, any fine. Any meat source is fine. Basically any non-vegan source is fine. So any complete proteins, your dairies, your meats, your fishes, they're all fine. I think your heme, your meat sources is.
I don't think that's really what people care about though. I think what they care about is do BCAAs themselves have this special effect that's going to enhance muscle gains? And the problem with BCAAs is, so the research has shown that leucine is a massive driver of muscle protein synthesis.
Yeah.
Right. So the best analogy I can give is, you take in some leucine, which is one of the essential amino acids, also a branch chain, that flicks on the switch to turn protein synthesis on, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think of it as an analogy of building a house, sort of, leucine is going to bring all the builders together, ready to start building the house, right? And I think you can think of the 9 essentials as the bricks.
Yeah.
So leucine brought all the builders together, but unless you have all the bricks, you can't complete the house. Now, to build muscle tissue, like I said before, you need all 9 essential amino acids. So no matter if you're taking in a big dose of BCAAs, which are only 3 of the essentials, if you haven't got a full spectrum amino acid pool available, meaning all 9 essential aminos, you're not going to build muscle tissue from that. So yes, leucine drives protein synthesis and it flicks on the switch, but you still need a full spectrum of amino acids to actually build tissue from that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So
it's
then
like leucine opening a dam, but if there's no water to come through, you just open an empty dam.
Yeah. So for our vegans out there, what would be the recommendation then for them to assure that they're getting their essentials?
If you're a vegan, then yeah, you probably would need supplement with it. But I mean, it's better. Some vegans are very clever these days, but I would say 99% of people who are vegans, yeah, you would supplement them with EAAs would be very smart. Branch chain amino acids, probably not, because it's not the branch chains.
You got to understand, like, people don't understand that if you take EAAs, you're still covering BCAAs. Like, there's there's no segregation between the two.
No. I think if you're taking branch chains, you're still missing you're missing 6 of the other ones. So, and if you say, okay, I'm missing my leucine content, so I know you know it's the leucine that you're missing, you might as well just cover all bases to EAAs. But I think there's a lot more branch chain supplements that are EAAs.
It's harder to get your hands on the EAAs. I think that supplement companies haven't realised this yet. I think they're almost still going down the BCAA route.
Because all the research focused on leucine in the last 10 years.
They're like, we're just going to dose this up. Absolutely. So I guess in terms of like that as a whole, kind of wrapping up, what would be then, I guess, some of the supplements that you both like that you kind of use in the daily, whether this be in contest prep or off season? I find my stuff doesn't really change whether I'm prepping or not. It's kind of the same year round. Maybe a little more caffeine in contest prep.
Training's training, yeah.
But training's training. So what are the ones, I guess, that you use at the moment, Jackson, and we'll see, you know, what we use as well?
I'll take caffeine pretty consistently. It will ramp up a little in contest prep, and then I'll taper it down during off season, just because I physically don't need it.
Yeah.
You've got carbs.
Yeah, exactly. And I use higher caffeine doses pre-contest to maintain my training output. That's the reason.
And actually go to cardio.
Yeah. Because I think the better you can maintain your training volumes during contest prep, the more muscle you're going to maintain.
Yeah.
And during a contest prep, I think like having your training performance in the forefront of your mind is
absolutely.
a major factor.
Keep lifting heavy.
I'll take creatine year round. So
what type do you prefer, nitrate or mono?
I'll just take a standard mono.
Yeah.
I have been loading nitrate salts on the side for that nitric oxide effect that we talked about.
The monohydrate's been the most tested.
But monohydrate is like, it's so cheap compared to creatine nitrate. Like that's what you got to think about.
And you don't get watery from it.
Yeah, no. You get a little bit of like intracellular water storage.
Exactly.
Like when we're talking about bloating and things like that,
yeah.
it's not.
How much are you taking?
yeah. So I think creatine is probably the most studied supplement with the most evidence-based backing out of anything.
Absolutely.
And I think if you're a power or strength athlete,
Yeah.
you'd add it. You'd be pretty smart to add it into your arsenal.
Absolutely.
I do take protein powder, but I don't see that as an ergogenic
Just to hit
supplement.
your
I just
protein.
see that as a food supplement.
Yeah. Just WPI.
Yep. Mainly just so I can get my carbs and fats from other
You can eat.
other sources. I don't think there's anything magical to the digestibility or digestion time versus like having a slow absorbing concentrate. It's just purely the macronutrient breakdown.
Doesn't have to be 5, but if they're there.
Yeah, like I have been taking the nitrate salts, creatine nitrate pre-workout, and I've been having pretty good, I won't say results, but subjectively I've been enjoying that.
Yeah.
I think pumps and are definitely better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other
So
ones?
I
Anything
don't have a massive list. I take fish oil, like I talked about at the start. 4 grams a day year round. And that's 4 grams of EPA, DHA, not like 4 grams of caps.
Yeah.
Some people
It's
get
going to be a
confused.
serious amount of caps.
Yeah.
Because there's about, 300 milligrams of EPA, DHA per cap.
Yeah.
So you need to take 3 to get 1 gram.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe like 12.
Yeah.
Like 1 cap does not equal 1 gram of EPA, DHA.
What about the one we did forget to touch on? What about testosterone boosters for natural athletes? Let's touch on that one. Sean, you probably touched on that because obviously you've been.
I can go on it first and just a lot of like just some that I know about like horny goatweed, fenugreek, tribulus. When we look at the research on these things that are supposedly touted as test boosters, generally all they see is increase in sex drive. So you're getting this increase in sex drive, but what's happening to serum levels of testosterone isn't actually that much.
Yeah.
So just because you feel hornier doesn't necessarily mean your testosterone's up. And I think that's a massive fallacy that comes out with some of those testosterone boosters. Now we've got other ones like D-aspartic acid, which has been researched and has been shown to increase testosterone. And now, like I've seen studies that have shown that taking D-aspartic acid increased testosterone by sort of 40% or something like that. And that sounds like a huge amount. But when you think about it, it's really not.
And is that acute or chronic as well?
No, it's chronic. It's chronic. And it's funny, like these studies have also shown that D-aspartic acid is only able to maintain those higher levels for a short period of time before they start falling back to baseline anyway.
Yeah.
But 40% when we're talking about how much that's still well in the physiological range of testosterone, like for a man.
Yeah.
Like you need a sort of, let's just say you're sitting average, you sort of need an increase in the range of sort of 100 to 500% before you're even getting close to going outside the physiological range.
let's
and
talk about
we've had some research come out recently that's shown like minor fluctuations of testosterone that are still within the physiological range, meaning like healthy male values, doesn't really have any significant impact on lean mass, or muscle mass. So
Yeah.
I think they're not going to have any. The legal ones aren't going to have any potential benefits, and sometimes a large bulk of the ones like tribulus and fenugreek, and maca even, they're not actually increasing testosterone. They're just increasing like sex drive.
Yeah.
People are associating that.
If you can't get a boner, it might be helpful, but
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
much in the gym. Yeah.
Again, that might be something slightly different, blood flow and what's it called, performance anxiety and all this sort of stuff.
Might be psychological. That's
Yeah.
the thing, you gotta look back at all of these things.
Yeah, well, I don't know. My view is that I work with a lot of people that have kind of screwed themselves up either through
Yeah.
excessive drug use,
So coming off gear
or post contest, and if they haven't reversed with their current coach or themselves or whatever. And you'd be surprised because one of the first things I get them to do is to get their bloods done, and sometimes guys especially still have libido, yet have their testosterone comes back at fuck all. So they're still getting erections and stuff like that. Vice versa is like I know some people have got higher testosterone and some just have no libido. So it shows that libido qualitatively doesn't really correlate to high testosterone.
Yeah, like some people are honestly just not horny.
Yeah.
Like some people don't have the sex drive. There's something wrong with that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that's a correlation with your testosterone levels. Like really, if you look at it that way, lots of girls. I coach a lot of girls who don't have sex drive, but they've got really high test levels and put on muscle well, and they're super healthy. So it's like, we've got to not go correlation causation sort of thing around here.
My thing with test, like you can't find any. There's very little data out there saying exactly what you said. Serum levels. Point of view. You can increase testosterone. Also, have you increased free testosterone? Something that's actually usable. I've read some decent research into SHBG with vitamin D.
Sex hormone writing.
Where you basically store your testosterone, but it's not freely
Which
usable.
is something that people often don't look at in blood tests, which really needs to be.
That's super high. Then they say you can build muscle through that anyway. But like you're trying to change something in the brain. Like I think really you've got to look at can you manipulate the pituitary gland connecting to your balls and stuff like that through a little herb. And there's just very little studies out there that have looked into the HPTA.
So you won't be taking alcohols?
No. Do you know what? I've trialed it
Did
myself.
you get some for free? Yeah.
I got some free because I used to work for a supplement store.
So you're like, why not? Yeah.
My estrogen went through the roof. My testosterone didn't change whatsoever, and it really fucked me up. Like I was just one day I'd wake up and have an erection for like 10 hours straight, and then the next day I wouldn't have one for the entire day. And it was really weird. So I need to just raise my estrogen, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not a big fan
I just
of
don't, there's just honestly there's not enough research on anything that's a natural product that is going to have enough of an impact on hormones to, I guess, create an impact on, we're talking specifically sex hormones.
Yeah.
And even cortisol, like all of these things, a herb is not going to do the job. So we need to look at it from the standpoint of
lifestyle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you're wanting to manipulate testosterone, looking at your training, looking at your recovery, looking at your sleep, looking at other factors, protein intake, macronutrient breakdown, what are some other ones that you guys look at if you've got a male client or a female and they're really struggling to get gains, they're a natural athlete and the testosterone is maybe a little bit bottom line when you look at blood work?
Calories is a huge one for me.
Usually
Eat more food.
Usually it's under eating.
Yeah.
There's a huge
Because look at the
one.
end of a contest prep, your hormones are downregulated no matter who you are. So
I think Eric Helms, when we were talking to Eric Helms, he said that because there was a lot of talk about low-fat diets causing low testosterone, but he said it's actually more low calories than technically the low fat. I mean, you need the fats to make the sex hormones, obviously, but it's
people
not as
freaking
much.
out, thinking, if I just up my fat but I down my carbs,
Yeah,
they're still on low calories.
And that's one of the main things I do. And you'd be surprised how many calories. I had one guy, and he had to go up to about 5,500 calories to start feeling decent. And then once he got up there, his blood work really changed. Like his testosterone came right the way up. And I think a lot of people just don't realise how much you can eat sometimes to repair your bodily processes as well.
Absolutely.
I think the big thing here, again, it comes back to how important are supplements. You know,
Very minuscule.
On the scale of things,
Yeah.
the last thing you should look at.
Exactly.
Yeah, look at Eric's like pyramid of work. It's like
essentially the last thing.
The last thing. So Shawnee, any other different supplements to what Jackson takes? You're pretty similar, aren't you? Creatine.
Very similar. Like I'm a huge. My pre-workout is caffeine and creatine.
Yeah.
Don't really use a lot more than that, to be honest. I don't mind taurine or like magnesium in terms of just because I sweat like a motherfucker. So
tons of taurine just for monsters.
Well, yeah, we're literally sat here
We're covered in
monsters. And there's 2 grams in one of these monsters, and you need what 3 to 5.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's funny. People hear taurine like and just general energy drinks are so bad for you or something, and it's funny how many people think taurine is some sort of extract from a book.
I've never heard that.
It's like I'm always in class, and I've always got sort of monsters in my office or on my desk, and like people will be like, "Well, you shouldn't drink that." Like I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Oh, the taurine."
I've never heard that.
Like yeah, the taurine like from the bulls.
it's not vegan.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like, the artificial ingredients or whatever, but get enough artificial ingredients in a pre-workout as opposed to like a tin of Monster. Like.
So for me, a Monster is oddly quite a
Good.
good pre-workout.
Yeah. Same.
But because it's got caffeine in, it's got.
And we looked at the amount a
acid.
Monster costs when they're on special, and it's roughly similar to a serve of a
You can get it for
pre-workout,
like
if not
$2.
cheaper than your average scoop of pre-workout's going to cost you about $2-3.
Yeah.
So why not? Like, taste nice.
Ginseng in there.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm pretty similar. Like caffeine, I definitely ramp up in comp prep. I've probably been loading that up lately, especially if I've got morning cardio. I'll have a hit of caffeine then, and then again probably before training, maybe a coffee during the day. But I don't really buy coffee out. I'm at home, so it's going to be a pot or 2 of Nespresso, which only has about
cheap ass.
Yeah, and that's only like 50 milligrams of caffeine in a shot of Nespresso, as opposed to like a coffee in the store where you're getting 3 or 4 shots. So not
if you
that
go to
really.
Jamaica Blue and you get a large, it's like 4 or 5 shots of coffee.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
But yeah, creatine monohydrate. A lot of girls get scared of creatine, but I really like it, especially if I have like a big session, definitely legs. I'll make sure I really take it. I'm a bit slack on and off with it, but for sure on massive leg days when I was powerlifting, I was using, a normal dose of it. I'm not saying crazy amount, 5 grams. I don't believe in loading, but you guys may have different opinions on that, but there's been no research really on that either. So creatine, that's pretty much it. Protein, I don't really even use protein powder much at the moment because I want to eat food. I'm on low calories and dieting.
It's on the opposite.
And my protein intake's not high enough for me to really need it. Like I only have about 150 grams of protein a day. So for that, I'd rather have a couple of serves of meat, some chicken, some eggs, then maybe throw it in a smoothie occasionally. I don't see it as essential. That's pretty much it. So I guess wrapping up, if you guys have to think of one piece of advice when someone's coming to you and saying, I'm looking at pre-workouts, I'm looking at fat burners, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, what would be a piece of advice that you would give them?
Mine personally, when I used to work in a supplement shop, someone would come in and ask me about fat burners and pre-workouts. It's probably why the supplement store's closed now. I would say why? What do you need it for? And look at your diet. One of the first questions I get asked when I send plans to clients is, what supplements am I taking? I'm like, is it in your plan? Do you need these?
It's funny, like I have the same problem with clients, like they feel like sometimes like your supplement plan might be so basic, like 5 grams of creatine.
Yeah.
And they tend to like sort of get upset because they feel like they're missing out.
What's the secret?
And it's hard to convince these guys that like just how minute of a role these supplements are playing, and even when, like if you want to talk about the sort of the fad supplements or the unverified supplements like the cognitive enhancers and like arginine, citrulline and things like that, like.
So pre-workouts in general.
It's like the effect of them is just going to be small, if anything.
Yeah.
But it's hard because the clients, like, they see everyone else taking them and they feel like they're missing this edge.
Yeah.
And they're just not. They're really not missing this edge. So sometimes I have to really work hard to convince them. It's like, listen, man, like, you're not missing out on anything.
Especially if they've been on it and you're trying to say, let's get off all this stuff. Because I had some of my girls that were on like every ATP product, not bagging out ATP, but And I had to say to them, I don't want you to take any of that for a while because I just want to see what happens. I want to get some blood works done. Let's just strip it back to the bare minimum and then see what we need, what we don't need, you know?
I think a lot of it's flavour as well. You know, Oxystrode, for example, like, it's mango flavour. Like, you want to drink some mango flavoured shit all day long. So, as opposed to, do you know what? Let's just drink water.
Yeah.
It's pretty boring. It doesn't
Have some
sound.
diet cordial.
It's not a sexy piece of advice. So, you like, drink some Oxystrode, you're going to get fucking shredded.
Yeah.
You know, it's very basic, and people just don't want to believe how basic it is.
What have I been having in comp prep? I've been having soda water with diet cordial.
Yeah.
It's been like my go-to when I get a craving at the moment. Because again, I don't want to sit and drink Monsters all day and have all these stims that I probably don't need. So, sorry, I cut in on Jackson's there, but what's your last bit of advice to these guys?
That sort of was my advice.
So yeah,
it was sort of a piggyback on Sean. Like me and Sean, I think we have sort of fairly similar principles.
Yeah, I think we all do, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good.
I don't have anything too crazy to add on top of Sean.
Yeah, I agree. I think just stop looking for the magic answer.
Yeah.
I think just do the work. Like, put in the work. People don't train hard enough. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true.
That's huge.
I think you need to have intrinsic drive to train. Like,
we have this issue in bodybuilding where sort of people tend to, like, 80% of the things that people are worrying about in bodybuilding are accounting for 20% of the results.
Absolutely.
So, like, I think that's a good way to sum up when it comes to supplements. And alternatively, you could say 20% of the supplements you're worrying about are accounting for 80% of the potential upside of the results. So I think that's a fairly.
I think people are expecting more than what they're actually going to get from.
100%.
Yeah.
And how much money are you wasting on this shit?
And you know what's funny? I always say,
food.
well, that's the other thing I was going to say. Like, a lot of people will complain about paying an online coach $100 a week, which to me is like, well, if they're the best coach, then whatever, I'll do what I need. But then they're going to go drop $400 on supplements. And it's like, wouldn't you be better investing your money in a coach that's going to help you with your training and nutrition than blowing your load on supplements? But again, it comes back to... yeah. You know, I think that's what it comes back to. Like, if you want to be more educated on this stuff, then invest your money in the right places. Invest it in getting a good coach, getting good advice.
Good food.
Yeah, good food, good quality food, all of that. And... yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, thank you.
It's not sexy, people.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
Sorry to say that.
Yeah, I always say this is like the unsexy part of results. Yeah. Like, it's the bit that the grind, the bit people don't want to do, the bit they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear there's no shortcuts. Like, what person that you talk to doesn't want to just hear, what's the secret that you're not telling everyone? Yeah. Like, you're hearing this from 3 people who have done a lot of bodybuilding over the years. We're not pros, but we've done a lot and we've been around a lot of clients to know that this isn't stuff we give to our clients. We're not lying to you here. And people don't believe that. Like, how many people go, really? Is that what you give your clients?
Yeah. I'm going to take it anyway.
So thank you so much, Jackson, for coming on today. Sorry it's been a little bit of a long one, but it is a big topic. And what is the best way, I guess, for people to contact you, follow you, all of that stuff? Give us a little plug now.
So just, I put content out on Instagram at Jackson Peos, one word. And
how do you spell Peos?
Peos.
There you go.
Where's that from?
Macedonia.
Isn't it? Okay.
Yeah. So the Greek coming out of me. That's why I'm always a bit tan.
Yeah, I always say that.
You get so mad. And then people can contact me through there. I do all my client work through my university affiliated email, which is jackson.peos@research.uwa.edu.au.
Awesome, we'll put that down below.
That's an email address.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward as alice@aliceround.com. Awesome. So Shawnee, anything to wrap up? Anything you want to chat about?
I think we could talk about 20 other supplements easily, but
and
we'll see what the reception is for this one, and if anyone wants any other...
If anyone wants any more, maybe we'll call it a Dr. Peos special and we'll have you on once every couple of months. So if you guys do want that, please email me direct, alice@aliceround.com. If you have any questions, topics you would like to hear, DM me, get up in my DMs. I enjoy that. It's that's it. So DM me on Instagram. And thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And we will chat to you in the next episode. See you guys.
Ciao.